Hello again, this is Ryan with Better Tattooing. We're going to keep on going with the coil machine science today. Talking about return springs. Neat. Alright, now that that is over with, we always have like a conflicting, I guess, nomenclature, descriptors for what we're going to be saying on like coil machine parts. Now, I don't know if people would agree with me or not on this, but the return spring is the spring that helps return everything back to its normal resting space, right? So that's your rear spring. We already had a video that was kind of describing how these things are going to work and why you need to know about your rear spring. But if we're thinking about the actual return rate and values of this, there's a few things that we need to think about when we're tuning our machines to make sure that they're going to run as best as they can. So the first one is going to be the amount of actual pull that we're going to have off of that. We'll set up our rear post here. Boop. And however far that this flex line is, this angle, we'll put theta there, however strong that value is where this thing actually starts to come up and lift is going to set how fast that spring is actually going to be pulled back after coming down. So this is something that kind of deals with the timing of our machine, right? And I know like it's personally it's interchangeable. I always said the return spring is going to be the front one, but I was talking to my buddy today and he's like, no, it's the rear one. So I don't know, we're just going to use this the way it is. If you think of it as something different, like this is the timing and not the return spring, totally cool, but let's just make sure that we're all saying the same thing when we start moving forward. Anyways, so that theta of that rear spring, however it's going to be bent, is going to change exactly how much force is required to pull it down, right? Let's go ahead and change our colors here. So the greater, right, the greater value of that theta is going to increase the amount of energy that we need, right, to actually pull that spring down. So our coils are going to be working really, really, really hard. And there's going to be a certain amount of force that can actually be applied by those coils within reason where it can work with that timing, how hard that slap is going to be. But if we put too much on it, the coils are not going to be able to pull it down. One, the distance between the A-bar and the coils make it so great that it's just not going to work. Or two, it's so strong against the back end that it's going to ground out against that contact, right? Because it's not going to be able to actually move down very far. There's only so much effort that we can do with that front spring by dropping it down in relation to where the A-bar is to actually allow the movement, which will just screw with the timing. It's not going to make it run very well. So there's always like a sweet spot for everyone based on geometry, which we have a video about that, and you know, the actual just like strength and tensile strength and you know, construction of what that rear spring is as to how it's going to be moving, and that's going to be up to each individual with whatever their setup is going to be. But just like meandering stuff today. All we know is that there's going to be a space within here that flex on that rear spring is going to be, you know, capable of actually increasing the amount of speed and power that is required to slap that needle down. And if you go over it, it's just going to start to degrade the performance. So small adjustments are always required on this. Now they have springs on this like tension guide. You can do a load, I forget what those things are called. I think it's like a load, like a torque meter, something like that, where you can end up hooking the end of this, and it's on a little meter that shows you how much force is actually being applied to it, and you'll end up bending the spring up slowly until it reaches a certain load limit, and then just release it and set it up and go whatever. But no one really has these at home. So what we would normally do is, if you're set up on here and you've got your coils wherever the A-bar is underneath it, we're just going to gap it with quarters, right? And we'll just stack quarters on top of there and shim it up underneath it until we get to a space we think might work well. Then we'll grab a screwdriver, edge flat, and just hold it on the back right where that edge of the rear post is. Take a hammer and just give it a little knock. It'll help set it, add a little bit of a bevel onto it. You're not trying to break the fucking rear post either, people, so just a little tap will work. Remove those quarters and you should be good to go. So that's the first one. But when you do these things, the one thing I always try to stress to people if you're tuning up your own machine is you have to look at it from all angles. And normally we're always doing like an XY plane on a flat surface like a whiteboard, and we're looking at it from the side. But when you actually start looking at things from the front, there is a few things you want to look out for with that spring. More often than not, when we sit here and we're messing around with stuff, using our fingers to bend it, what you're going to end up actually have happen is this is going to end up having a bit of a bend to it, or twist or a warp. So if you have that spring and it's not perfectly flat and adjusted to be straight, then what happens is when it's being pulled down, you'll end up getting this oscillation, however minute that it is, in the back end, which will cause premature wear on that static point where the spring is interacting with the rear whatever that is, the rear post. Geez, my brain is so tired today. And it'll cause fracturing to occur much quicker, which means that your springs will break more often. So if you see that you have your spring, like it just has like a little bit of a wobble or a tilt to it, pull it back out, set it into a bench vise or something. Don't heat them up too much because you'll make them more brittle, but just set them in there, give them a squeeze, or even try with a pair of pliers to try and straighten them out. If you can't get it, get a new spring. It'll just help everything run better. So that's that. If you're trying to do your tuning, paying attention to the rear spring is going to give you a little more of a slappy, happy machine if you need it, based on however far that this bend up is going to be. If you have to drop it down, you're going to end up removing a lot of that tension. Your A-bar is going to end up sagging. So it's going to have to actually rely on whatever distance is left between the bottom of the A-bar and that coil to create enough tension to start pulling it up. So loosen it up a whole lot. If your machine's running way too hard, way too fast, decreasing that value will, of course, make it just a little bit more, I don't know, calm, which we all like, don't we? Anyways, that's it for today. It's Ryan from Better Tattooing, signing off.